Most people, when they see an ambiguous situation, they get scared and they freeze. They wait for someone to tell them what to do.
You don't have to make your decisions in your own head. Okay? Now, when you start to realize that you know what you're good at and what you're bad at, that a power comes to you when you start to know, okay, who's the best person to give me the advice, or who's the best person to lead me through this, or when you start to know that you can go beyond what you think and your opinionatedness, so that you can triangulate. I call it triangulate with others, so that you find 3 people who are really capable of giving you good advice, who will argue with each other and argue with you so you can see all sides of it, and you work yourself through. So it's not just your eyes looking for the path, but it's other people's eyes looking with the path with you, knowing that you're going to have successes and failures. But that power of that collective learning and triangulate well with humbleness is a great power as you go through that cycle.
Lots of people who will tell you you're crazy because it's easy for people to give you drive-by advice. Look, they're just driving by. Oh, the economy sucks. Oh, that'll never work. And they're basically saying, screw you. You should give up. And you know what? It's easy to identify the drive-by advisors. Much harder to identify your own mind playing tricks on you. When you start to say things like, this will never work because, or who would ever buy this right now, you are doing the same thing those drive-by advisors are doing. You're just driving by your own head. You're saying, that'll never work. So my advice to you on that is don't try to deny it. Your mind will always play from a position of safety, not excellence. And so acknowledge it, write it down, and say, okay, this will never work. This is horrible. I suck. I'm not good. Write it down. But then open up another piece of paper and say, okay, I wrote down all the reasons that this might fail. Now let me write down all the reasons that this might succeed. And then take those 2 pieces of paper and look, and you choose which one you want to follow.
The easiest thing I've done was to get out from under the labels and to live the life that I live. The most difficult thing I've ever done was to believe that I can do it. And the difference is that when you don't know what's impacting you, and it's something that's holding you down and you're not aware of it. So there are things that when you, in my situation, when you live in a dominant culture that is designed to destroy your sense of self and your belief in yourself, and you have to learn ways in which you can begin to connect with this power that you have within yourself to handle where you are. The key is to be constantly in a perpetual process of discovering the truth of who you are and fighting constantly to look for ways in which you can escape the inner conversation. I speak to audiences around the world, and I train speakers as well, and I tell them that when you speak, that there's an objective that you want to achieve when you speak to an audience, because how people live their lives is a result of the story they believe about themselves. So you as a speaker, when you speak in this program, when people see you, what you do is distract, dispute, and inspire. You distract people from their current story with your guests and the questions that you ask. Through the process of the ongoing questioning and the way in which they respond and the things they have learned, you dismantle their current belief system and inspire them to create a new chapter with their lives. And so, but that's an ongoing process of constantly interrupting that conversation, what the psychologists call your self-explanatory style, because life is going to beat up on you in so many ways, and many things, they come back. Negative thoughts and how you feel about yourself, they don't die. They come back once you stop doing the maintenance work on your mind.
I have access to a lot of hiring managers, both my friends and in my I Will Teach You to Be Rich community. And I reached out to them and I said, hiring managers, tell me, what do you see? And I also reached out to job applicants. I said, what do you see? So here's what I heard. first off, the job applicants. One of them told me I had 4 interviews going. 3 of them dropped off the face of the earth. They just stopped responding. Okay, that was a very common trend. I've heard from job applicants that the market they were going after just completely dried up. So very common. Interestingly, on the hiring manager side, there were some people who said there are hiring freezes that were immediately instituted, but I had some hiring managers who said, we are hiring and we can't get enough applicants. And I said, why do you think that is? They're like, I think nobody thinks anyone's hiring. So there's a whole game being played around us. And of course it's true that right now it's an employer's job market. Of course it's true that it's fiercely competitive. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't still focus on landing a job. Now I want to tell you how I think about landing a job. Most people, when they see an ambiguous situation, they get scared and they freeze. They wait for someone to tell them what to do. That's because that's what we've been taught since we were kids. Oh, I don't know what to do. Is the teacher going to tell me to go over here or go over there? And we've been indoctrinated, okay? But in times of ambiguity, I think we love it. You and I, we're like, ambiguous? Great, I'll create my own opportunity. So imagine that you see a job that's in Washington, D.C., and you live in Seattle, and it says, requires 8 years of experience and DC-based, blah, blah, blah. I would look at that and say, great, I only have 3 years of experience and I live in Seattle. I'm going to write the most amazing cover letter and tell them why I deserve this job. I'm going to point to the exact briefcase technique, things that I've implemented. You guys can Google briefcase technique and learn about that. And I'm going to tell them, look, I work in Seattle. We can discuss DC, but nobody's working physically right now. So we might as well just get this started so you don't have to wait for the right candidate. I am the right candidate. In other words, take all the rules and put them aside. It's a different time. For most people, they get scared by that ambiguity. For you, you're listening to this, you're watching this, you can create your own rules right now. In the old days when people used to carry around a briefcase, you go in for an interview and they say, all right, tell me about yourself, blah, blah, blah. Those are all rote questions. And yes, you should answer them. But what really distinguishes a top performer in an interview is that they say, oh, let me tell you, I spoke to several people on your team. I did a little research. I studied the interviews you've given to the press recently, and I put together a little 90-day plan for what I would do in my role. Let me show you. Boom! You theatrically pull out your briefcase, you give them a copy of your document, and then you say, let me walk you through this. Now, as you do this, the manager's jaw drops. She can't believe that somebody came in and did this level of preparation. Now, let's just zoom out for a second. There's 2 types of people listening to this right now. The first type is saying, oh, Ramit, how are you going to find out any of the information? You're so presumptuous. Oh, who would ever think that you could go in and tell a company what to do? Those people will fail because you're looking for reasons for this exercise not to work. So why don't you just give up right now and save the middleman? You're always going to look for why something won't work. The other people, aka the thousands of people online who have publicly talked about using the briefcase technique, they go in and they do their homework. They use what we call natural networking from our career program. They meet other people at the company. They study what the company's strategies are. They also accept that they probably can't get it all right from the outside. They're doing the best they can. 85% is better than nothing. And they walk in with a proposal. And although their proposal isn't going to be perfect because they're on the outside, they did more than anyone else, and they just decimate the competition. And we see what you, a hiring manager, do when you see that. Your jaw drops, and you can't help but hire that person.